Alright, hello everyone, welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick and over on this side of the comms, of course, Justin, providing gameplay and commentary wherever the heck he feels like he wants to, because I ain't stopping him. And let's be honest, I can't either. But, so, anyways, hi. We promised to do an uplifting video the last two streams, and that did not happen the last two streams because more depressing things happened. And more depressing things continued to happen at Bungie. But we're not covering those depressing things because I promised you an uplifting video. So here's your uplifting video. We also were tempted to do something about the Game Awards and Starfield, but again, that's depressing, kind of, depending on who you ask. I mean, would you consider Game Awards passing up Starfield depressing or not, Justin? I don't know. What do you think?
It sounds a little depressing.
I thought so too. So again, we'll shelve that for later. All right, let's go. This will be talking about Genshin. I always love talking about Genshin because I feel like I need to have excuses to talk about Genshin. It's my my
It's
guilty
this
pleasure.
little bit baby type thing.
I mean. Anyways, I thought we would talk about its most recent update, or yeah, recent as of the time of this recording. I think it came out a week or two ago. 4.2. 4.2 actually brings us to the end of the Archon quests in Fontaine, which is now our, let's just shout them down, Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma, Sumeru. Now, fifth nation. This is our fifth nation we've gone through. I'm a bit surprised though, because in previous Archon quest, I feel like in Sumeru we went to at least 4.3 before we got to the end of the Archon quests, the main kind of story of the nation. But it wrapped up in 4.2, so I'm actually kind of surprised here. I just say this because if you look at the traveler's log, or the travel log, which kind of shows you how far you've, like, every kind of or I don't want to say cutscene, but dialogue you've had in the main story, and you can replay those dialogues, it actually shows you that as the nations have been going on, they've been slowly getting longer and longer, you're getting more kind of bits of each of the nations. And I believe we were up to like 4 or 5 sections of a nation before we finally got to the end. So I thought we'd get 6 this time, but no, we're still at 4 or 5, somewhere along there. So I'm a little shocked. Hopefully we'll see something kind of bigger going on. Then again, I feel like Sumeru is just in general bigger, but that might also be kind of colored by the fact that by the time I got to the Sumeru section, the entirety of Sumeru had basically already come out. So I was just starting the quest, like the Archon quest there, basically when they were finishing up the entire nation. Which brings me to another interesting point. Despite the fact that we've finished the Archon quest of the nation, we're technically not finished Fontaine. There's still more area to unlock as the expansion goes, or as the version goes on, and more world quests to kind of flush out the story as things go on, despite the fact that we've technically already finished the story quest for the area. It's kind of weird. Think of it like finishing the main quest of a video game, but then going back to do all of the side quests after the credits roll. And it's not that they were there originally, they are slowly being released as the credits roll. So, it's a weird disconnect. It's like, okay guys, we're done Fontaine, off to Natlan. Once we're in Fontaine for the next 4 months still. Why? I don't know, walking is very tiring.
Yeah,
You
we're
ever
we're gonna
walk?
be here for a little bit. Don't worry about
You ever walked from one country to the next? Trust me, it's tiring. You're gonna want to sit there for a while. So we still got some time in Fontaine left, even if the Archon quests are wrapped up. And it is a little odd to wrap up the kind of keep staying in Fontaine, especially after the big banger that is Fontaine's Archon quest. The story, again, for those who don't know, revolves around the great prophecy of a great flood and the Archon, who may or may not be all that interested in it, and turns out there's a very depressing story behind her, and she actually does care. It's very depressing. I said we will not do depressing things this video though, so I'm not going to talk about the story. Plus, technically the expansion's only been out for this version that deals with the greater points of the story, that does some real big revelations, has only been out for like 2 weeks, give or take at this point, so I'm still not going to talk about it. because, so you can experience it if you want to. I really would. I say what you about Genshin being a gacha game, and it is. Let's be honest. It still has one
We
of the
can't
best
ignore
stories.
that.
We can't ignore this fact, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get me wrong. I've played other gacha games in the past. It is one of the more forgiving ones. Definitely up there on the scale. However, it is still a gacha game, and it still must be acknowledged as one. That said, it is one of the best storytelling in gacha games I've seen in a long, long time. Hell, its story is really good just in general. Like, even when you forget the fact it's a gacha game, it's really good. MiHoYo does some really good work. So, Chinese propaganda confirmed. No, I'm just kidding. I kid. We're fine. All that said, though, it's again, it's a really nice game. I recommend anyone try it if you're into it. It takes a while to get into though, because you have to go through all the nations first before you get to Fontaine. It's linear storytelling, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you can go to the other nations and experience the world quests and stuff like that, but you won't get the Archon quests until you get to that point in the story, which, like I said, kind of brings us back to that weird point we talked about earlier. It's weird to kind of like finish the story of a game, but not have the credits roll until like you've finished all the side content, effectively. You know what? Here's a good analogy. Anyone who's played the Batman Arkham games, you know exactly what I mean. At least I think beyond Arkham Asylum, because I think Arkham Asylum was pretty linear. Where you'd have all of the main story, right? And you'd finish the main story. But the credits and the true ending wouldn't roll until you finished all of the other side content, including
All the
damn Riddler
little
trophies.
bits. Yeah, all the little bits that are filler and you only really do every once in a while.
Including the damn Riddler trophies. We all know the pain of those Riddler trophies. I damn know them. Now, granted, this is maybe a bit of an extreme analogy because we're technically just waiting for Natlan to come out before we move on, but it is still kind of a good comparison. It is that weird feeling of like, I'm done! Not really, I guess. Like I said, walking between countries is tiring. The traveler needs to sit and take their time and wait. Because, walking is hard. Walking
Walking
between
is
countries.
very hard and
Walking
very tiring.
Hey, you joke about that, but you ever walk between countries before? It's very tiring. Just walk from like the border of the US to like Mexico. And
I
then talk
mean,
to me.
that's not as long as a walk as some other countries can be.
I never said which border.
Bro,
Walk from the Canadian border to Mexico and then tell me how tired you are.
still longer walks, but there is the point.
There's the point. Walk from the Canadian border to Mexico and then tell me how freaking tired you are. But anyways, honestly though, I really enjoyed Fontaine's story. Again, not getting into it because it's still not very far out since the release. But it really does invert a lot of what we thought about Faruna, the Archon, as a character on its head. And we're really starting to establish this depressing trend in the Genshin storytelling where as time's going on, we're just getting more and more depressing storytelling. Well, I wouldn't say more. Sumeru's ending was also pretty depressing as well, but it is this kind of every time we leave a nation at this point, it's always there's an Archon sacrificing themselves. What happened to Mondstadt and Liyue where Barbados just kind of patted us on the back and said, okay, there you go, off you go. And
Back to
same thing
work.
with yeah, same thing with Morax and Liyue, where he just kind of patted us on the back and he said, good luck out there, buddy. And just kind of went into retirement because gods get retirement. I mean, when you've been running the show for like several thousand years, I suppose retirement is warranted, but still. Whatever happened to that kind of ending for Archons, where they're just patting us on the back and saying, good job out there, go get him, buddy. Well, I wish you luck. Nope, it's always, and the Archon dies. The end. And on to the next nation.
Anyways.
I mean, Sumeru was very like touching a story, and freaking Fontaine is based in with like each of the nations. For those who don't know, in Genshin Impact, have a cultural root that they're associated with per se, based on the real world. So Mondstadt is. It took me a while to figure out which one Mondstadt was, but I think it's kind of Germany, Europe around the medieval era. Liyue is, in the words of Maxor, Ming Dynasty China. Uh, in the case of Inazuma, feudal Japan. In the case of Sumeru, it's a merging of a few cultures in there. I've been told it's a mixture of everything from Indian to South American culture, or South African culture, I mean, not South American. So, and I'm not too familiar with South African culture, so I'm not going to comment on that. I certainly see the Indian references, though. Lots of curry and lots of rice, but
Bruh. Indian culture described only by food.
hey, that's the best. That's the most part I'm familiar with. I
I
am
see.
neither Indian or have gone to India, but I have eaten their food.
I am
But
familiarity with only one way, one method, one result.
but like I said, it's got depending on which area of Sumeru you're in, you also have the Egyptian flair in the desert, which you can clearly see King Deshret and the pharaohs and pyramids, and it's the whole thing. So Sumeru is probably the biggest melting pot of several civilizations that are all kind of around the same area, unless you count the African part, which is a whole other continent. But I digress. Or a whole other section of a continent. And which brings us to Fontaine. Fontaine is depressing because its background is. At first, I wanted to say we did originally a video on Fontaine pre-release, and I said that it was Industrial Revolution England, and I still kind of hold to that. But I think it's a lot more leaning towards. It has a bit of Industrial Revolution to it because it's got that steampunk feel, but it's much more in the vein of pre-revolution France in terms of the people naming convention, in terms of the food, in terms of the culture. And what are the French known for? Drama, melodrama, and opera. But that's beside the point. Apparently opera, though.
Apparently, opera.
But anyways, drama and cult, sadness. And trust me, Fontaine really does capture the whole melodramatic bits of the French culture, I think, in Fontaine. And like I said, the story is very depressing. Natland, as far as we know, is probably going to be based on South America. Maybe some Aztec culture thrown in there as well, because it's in the middle of the desert, but it's much more tribal. So, granted, South America is not known for its deserts, but in terms of culturally speaking, I believe we're going to be leaning more towards, like I said, South American culture, maybe some Incan and Mayan thrown in for flavor. So expect that. The last big nation, however, that we have to face after that, unless you want to count Conria, which the jury's still out on whatever the heck Conria was based off of. I've seen no real cultural indication there. It's effectively like saying, what were the Forerunners from Halo based off of? I don't know, themselves. They were two before everything else, so they didn't really have a cultural root. They are the cultural root. But in the case of not Fontaine, in the case of Snezhnaya, which is again the last nation after that, we're thinking Russia, and a few other places that I can't name of, but mostly Russia. So we got a pretty wide, varied cultural set here. How long until we see Natlan though, despite the fact we're only in 4.2? I mean, Genshin tries to release their expansions once every year, or tries to release a new area every year. And they've kept to that, so I'm going to say let's aim for around May of next year, maybe. Maybe April if we're being lucky. Who knows? That will depend on how many expansions are left of Fontaine. Like I said, we're finishing the Archon Quest. We're only on 4.2 when it took like 4.3 on Sumeru to finish the Archon Quests. So we'll see. And I don't know. I want to feel like it almost felt abrupt in the Fontaine Archon quests, but it wasn't abrupt in a bad way. It built up just very quickly and then crashed down. So, we'll see. I'm hoping that we get something out of Natlan soon, though, considering, like I said, we're already done the Archon quest for Fontaine, but we still have to stay in Fontaine for the next remainder of 2023 and early 2024, maybe. Like I said, walking between countries is tiring. It's not like the Traveler has a car he can drive or something, or she, depending on the character. Plus, I don't think there are many roads in Genshin, where at least not roads capable of cars. Mostly walking, and, well, boats, but outside of the nation of water, I don't think Natlan, a desert-bound nation, is going to be all that useful when getting to by boat.
Ah,
It's like saying, let's boat to the Sahara Desert. Friend, that's not how that works.
I'm sorry. No.
No.
We're not doing that. Not today.
Though I'd love to see you try. Now I'm just picturing someone in a canoe. It's like,
Insert
paddling on the sand.
insert every character who is able to either A, create water, or B, fly on in the air.
Man,
And
I
just
went.
like,
I just said that, and I just saw like a picture of like a dude in a canoe in like a barren desert, just like, eh, eh. It's like
ev-
trying to paddle through the sand.
just really old animation style. You just hear the human made sound effects.
You just see him slowly crossing in front of the screen, slowly crossing across the screen. But anyways, we will see. Fontaine, like I said, is a very interesting nation, though. It introduced the ability to swim underwater, because while the Traveler cannot swim, he cannot swim underwater. I do not know why. But in fairness, for the Nation of Hydra, if you're going to introduce an underwater gameplay section, I mean, why not the Nation of Water, right? I
Yep.
was hoping for a more Atlantean feel, though, when we were dealing with the whole Tonkin civilization aspect that Fontaine has going on. Maybe we'll still get there. There's still a world quest line that kind of is leading up to it. It's kind of interesting. In previous kind of game, not to say games, in previous areas of Tivat, in previous like nations, the world quests have always been individualized. They've always been big, long chain stories that are individual and related to the area they're in. But in the case of Fontaine, it's a weird thing they're doing where the world quests, at least, that I've been discovering, have all been leading up to one giant world quest. Like, they all converge into one centralized world quest. So I think you'll have to finish all of the others before you get, like, one end world quest, which is interesting world building, like, on gameplay standards. Like, on a side note, I think it's an interesting way of doing storytelling when you have a bunch of side quests that all lead into one mega quest that don't appear to be connected, but as you go through them, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
this
that you
connects to
start
that.
seeing the connections here and there.
Yeah, and they all kind of like converge onto one thing. This is building up to something. I have no idea what, though. We'll have to wait for more of the quests to come out with the versions. Perhaps it'll be done by 4.4, who knows? Or maybe I just haven't found the rest of the world quests yet. Again, we'll see. There are still certainly one or two world quests I haven't gone through yet. But like I said, since Fontaine is an underwater nation, I was really hoping for that more Atlantean feel to it. Like, again, going back to Maxor, he once joked that Enkanomiya that we found back in Inazuma was basically, it's Atlantis. It's Japanese Atlantis. It is. It kind of is. But I was hoping for an actual legitimate, like, true Atlantis, because technically Enkanomiya is beneath an island, in a pocket underground, and not underwater, technically. So,
Technically. We're
I
being
mean,
very technical here.
it's under the ground in an island, so technically it's underwater, yes. geographically speaking, but it's not, truly a sunken nation in that sense. It's sunken underground, not underwater. So I was hoping with Fontaine having this whole, sunken nation feel to it, that we'd have that Atlantis storyline going on. Not really, but we'll see. Who knows? Maybe the Serenity Pot will give me sunken nation decorations, or I can just make my own bloody Atlantis. When in doubt, make it yourself.
When you doubt it, do it yourself.
Honestly, the music in Fontaine though is great. But then again, I have always praised Genshin Impacts music. Like, of the games I've played, they're like, I always like music in games, but I never tend to be like, oh, this is really, really great music. Destiny, Genshin, these are games that do their music really freaking well. And now that Salvatore's gone in Destiny, we'll see if that continues. But again, we're not talking about depressing things today.
Today is something different.
So, like I said, we will see. I'm hoping. Thankfully, as I said before, this is a gacha game, and as the story progresses, you get more of the actual characters in the world that you can actually get as characters for the gacha, including the Archons themselves. Thankfully, I actually had really good luck this time around with Faruna when she got put into the banner this season, or this expansion. I was hoping that I would get her pretty soon, or at least, pretty decently. We had to pull maybe once or twice, like one or two sets of 10 before I was able to get her, which is pretty freaking good, all things considered, considering this was literally just as the expansion was coming out. I was thinking it was going to take like all of my freaking pulls before I would, but nope, 20 pulls and that was it, which might not seem that bad, but generally you pull in Genshin if you're like hoping for a bunch of stuff in like sets of 10, so 20 pulls is quite literally just 2 pulls. So pretty good, all things considered. I didn't go for Nuvalet last expansion, though I hear that might have been a major mistake because he's apparently very big in the DPS.
A department that would be very useful and very helpful.
You joke about that, but in Genshin there is some massive power creep.
I mean, it's a gacha game, so yes.
In that regard, it depends on, like, again, I think Maxor is the best way to default to this. Depending on how much investment you put into Genshin, like, it is a game that will generally give you what you want when you seek it out. That I very much agree with Maxor. There's only one problem. Depending on how you build your character, enemies can take minutes to kill. One enemy, mind you. So, DPS is always very much appreciated in this game. Or just general total damage. And Nuvalet was apparently broken, and apparently is still broken. So, I kind of regret not getting him, but it's not something I'll lose sleep over. I'm currently more focused on getting the whole Archon collection. I have basically all of them except Morax, which I've been told was, and maybe still is, very good at DPS, and Kusanali, Nihida from Sumeru. I mean, let's be honest, Nihida's just adorable, so I'm doing that as a personal thing. Yes, this is how I spend my time, ladies and gentlemen, by nerding out over gacha pulls. Yes, I am a weeb.
Did I not emphasize that point?
Yeah. Come on, you know what you were signing up for when you subscribed to this channel. And if you're not subscribed, you should subscribe. We do
Yes,
good
why not
content like
subscribe?
this. Speaking of time and subscribe and everything, what time are we at, Justin?
We are at 25 minutes almost.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I think we've covered everything. For fun fact on the side, we had another video that we did of this the day before recording this one, and it was just an absolute mess. So we talked about it, and we said, you know what? For your pleasure and my own personal quality amount, and probably Justin's, it would just be better to just scrap the thing and redo it, and here we are. I think this one came out much better this time around. What do you think, Justin?
It's pretty good.
Comparative to the last one, it certainly was a much better step up.
Yeah.
So, anyways, there we have it. We were just kind of covering Genshin 4.2 as a recap. Well, my opinion, Justin doesn't play Genshin. He is not the weeb that I am.
I am just the guy who sits here like, okay, okay.
We play
I
Destiny together and a few other things, but not Genshin. Though I would love to see him
as
play
the
it. And I would play.
gameplay will contest to what it is I play. I play games that are much different.
He says that, and I just got the feeling he's playing TF2.
No, I am playing Halo Reach Firefight, but
Also unsurprising,
I'm
but
playing
that's
a
beside the point.
custom firefight that I've made for myself that is just dopamine inhibiting.
I'm trying not to talk about depressing things, and he's playing probably one of the most depressing games in the whole frickin'
How
Halo
is this
franchise.
depressing? I'm giving the viewers the most amount of dopamine they can possibly get with this video.
Sure, but of all the Halo games, you had to pick the most depressing one?
I mean, it's technically not. Well, it's a depressing one, but
It's
out of
the
all of
second
the.
most, possibly other than Reach, depending on how you rank them.
This is literally Reach. I was referring to ODST. ODST is
Yeah,
another
ODST.
depressing one.
That's what I'm saying. Depending on how you rank them, it's either ODST or Reach, which is the most depressing, but it's one of the two.
Reach is the most accurate to the Halo universe. ODST is like, holy crap. That's what the actual regular humans that are not Spartans go through.
Well, in fairness, the whole Halo series is just massively depressing on the side, but that's a side note. That's the nice part about a series like Warhammer. Everything is over the top and extreme, and yes, things are depressing, but they're so depressing they almost come way back around to being amusing and happy.
It's depressing in an amusing format.
Yeah. Things are so depressing in Warhammer, they come all the way back around to being happy and amusing again. Because they're just so over the top. Halo is just depressing in general, though. They don't have that luxury. Here's me trying to have a happy video, and he just freaking plays
I,
ODST.
hey,
Oh
hey,
well.
hey, it's alright. I'm not doing any depressing formats, and if anything, this is basically me playing Doom, but with extra steps.
Well, Doom is at least uplifting. It's violence and
How is
gore in a happy
Doom
format.
uplifting?
It's wanton violence in an insane format.
I see.
Have you ever seen the Doom Slayer be depressed? He's angry, but he's
Yes.
never depressed. Well, not in the new game.
Still,
Not recently.
yes. I'm gonna say yes, he's slightly depressed.
Oh yeah, slightly depressed, but more insane than depressed.
Not insane. I'd say, like,
Driven.
incredibly rage-driven.
When you play Doom, you don't think sadness, you think wanton violence. And probably some other things which should not be thought about, but that's beside the point.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. What happens in your head is your problem. But, or perhaps I should say, what happens in your head is, well, depending on how depressing it is, it might be someone else's problem. You know what, let me just revoke that previous statement. But anyways, maybe I'll cut that part out.
I see.
But anyways, again, wants to do the recap. We talked about 4.2, we talked about Fontaine, talked about my opinions of it. You know, when we'll possibly see Natlin, what the heck will be in Natlin, its cultural influences, kind of the story and my own experiences with Fontaine. And yeah, hope it gets better. Like I said, I'm still gunning for that Atlantis feel. Still kind of have it, but we don't have that Atlantis storyline just yet. Come on, Genshin. Give it to me. And with that, I will finally stop talking and let you all go, because we'll be here all night if I don't. So,
Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Stay
He says that
tuned for more Genshin Impact news when it comes out. Eventually.
it will come out in patience. He
Be
says it with
patient.
more melodramatics than I think. Well, no, he certainly intends that amount, but
Yes,
more
I do.
than perhaps I would use. Have a
I
good night, ladies and gentlemen.
I bring the flare when there is no flare needed.